My name is Robert. I'm 73 years old, and there's a letter in the bottom drawer of my desk that I've never shown anyone. Not my wife, not my children, not a single soul in 50 years. I keep it in an old cigar box underneath tax documents from the 80s and a broken watch I never got repaired. It's yellowed now. The ink has faded in places. But I know every word by heart. I could recite it in my sleep. I probably have. T. It arrived in the mail in the spring of 1974. I was 23 years old. I'd been out of college for a year, working at my father's hardware store, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do with my life. The letter came from a girl named Caroline. We'd been together for 2 years in college. Not the kind of together where everyone knows. The kind where you meet late at night, where you talk until the sun comes up, where you believe you've found something no one else could possibly understand. But after graduation, I moved back home. She stayed out east. We wrote to each other for a while, but the distance felt impossible. At least that's what I told myself. And then one day I just stopped writing back. I didn't make a big decision. I didn't sit down and think it through. I just stopped. I convinced myself it was the right thing, that we were young, that it wasn't realistic, that she'd move on and so would I. And then 6 months later, the letter came. I remember standing in the kitchen when I opened it. My mother was at the sink washing dishes. The radio was on. It was a Tuesday. I read the first line and my hands went cold. Robert, I need you to know something. She told me she'd been pregnant. That she'd found out a few weeks after I stopped writing, that she didn't know what to do, so she reached out to a mutual friend who told her I'd already started seeing someone else. Which wasn't true, but that's what she'd heard. She wrote that she didn't want to trap me, that she didn't want to ruin my life, that she'd made a decision on her own because she thought I'd already made mine. She told me she'd had an abortion, and she told me she was writing because she didn't want to carry it alone anymore, that she needed me to know. Not because she wanted anything from me, just because it happened, and I was part of it, and she thought I should know. The letter ended with a single line. I hope you're happy, Robert. I really do. I stood there in that kitchen for I don't know how long. My mother asked if I was all right. I said yes. I folded the letter. I put it in my pocket. And I didn't say a word. I told myself I'd write back, that I'd call her, that I'd find a way to reach her and tell her I was sorry, that I didn't know, that if I had known, I would have. But I didn't finish that sentence, because I didn't know what I would have done, and that scared me more than anything. So I didn't write back. I told myself it was too late, that bringing it up again would only hurt her more, that she'd moved on, that the kindest thing I could do was leave her alone. But really, I just didn't know how to face it, so I put the letter in a drawer, and I left it there. Script part 2, Saran's. As a year later, I met my wife, Ellen. She was kind, steady, the kind of person who made life feel manageable. We got married in 1976. We had 2 daughters. We built a good life, a quiet life, and I never told her about the letter. Not because I was hiding it exactly. At least that's what I told myself. I just didn't know how to bring it up. It felt like something from a different person's life, something that didn't belong in the life I was building. So I kept it separate. I'd think about it sometimes. Late at night, or when my daughters were young and I'd watch them sleep, I'd wonder what Caroline's life looked like now, if she ever thought about it, if she was angry, if she'd forgiven me, if there was anything to forgive. Years passed. My daughters grew up. Ellen and I grew older. We had grandchildren, holidays, routines, and the letter stayed in the drawer. I thought about throwing it away more times than I can count, but I never did. Then, about 5 years ago, my oldest daughter asked me a question. We were sitting on the back porch. She'd just gone through a divorce. She was trying to figure out how to co-parent with her ex-husband, how to be honest with her kids about what had happened. She said, "Dad, do you think it's better to tell the truth even if it hurts? Or is it kinder to just let some things stay quiet? And I didn't know what to say, because I'd spent 50 years choosing quiet. I told her I didn't know, that it probably depends. But I think she could tell I was lying. A few months ago, I saw Caroline's name in an obituary. I wasn't looking for it. I was reading the paper, the way I do every morning, and there it was, Caroline Fletcher, 72 years old, passed peacefully, survived by her husband and 3 children. I sat there staring at it. She'd had a whole life, a family, people who loved her, and I felt relieved, which is a strange thing to feel when you read that someone has died. But I think part of me had been afraid all these years that I'd ruined her life, that she'd carried that weight forever and never found peace. And seeing that obituary, seeing that she'd had children, that she'd been loved, it felt like permission to finally let it go. Too cute. But I haven't let it go, because the truth is, I don't think I've been carrying it for her. I've been carrying it for me, too. I think about the version of myself that opened that letter in 1974, 23 years old, scared, confused, convinced that staying quiet was the same thing as being kind. I don't hate him, but I don't recognize him either. He thought silence was protection. He thought distance was mercy. He thought that if he just didn't say anything, it would hurt less. But it didn't hurt less, it just hurt longer. I never wrote back to Caroline. I never called. I never told her I was sorry. And now I never will. I think about my daughters sometimes, about the things I didn't say to them when they were young because I thought they weren't ready, or because I thought it wasn't my place, or because I didn't want to burden them. I think about my wife and the parts of myself I've kept locked away because I thought that's what it meant to be a good husband, to not bring old pain into a new life. I think about all the conversations I didn't have because I was afraid of what they'd uncover. And I wonder how different things might have been if I just said something. Anything. I'm not saying the letter ruined my life. It didn't. I've had a good life, a full life, but there's a part of me that's been sitting in that kitchen since 1974, holding that letter, too afraid to move. And I'm 73 years old now, and I'm running out of time to figure out what I was supposed to do with it. I don't know if Caroline ever forgave me. I don't know if she thought about me at all in the last 50 years. Maybe she didn't. Maybe the letter was her way of closing a door, and I was the only one still standing on the other side of it. I hope that's true. I hope she had a beautiful life. I hope her husband loved her the way she deserved. I hope her children made her proud. I hope she never thought about me again. But I've thought about her. Every year on the anniversary of that letter. Every time I open that drawer, and I've wondered what would have happened if I'd been brave enough to write back. Not to change anything, not to fix it, just to say, I know, I'm sorry, I wish I'd been different. I'm 73 years old, and I kept one letter hidden for 50 years, not because it was a secret, but because I didn't know how to live with it out loud. I don't have advice for you. I don't have answers. I just know that silence feels like safety until you realize it's been a cage. And by the time you figure that out, the people you needed to talk to are gone. If you've stayed with me this long, thank you. I don't know why I'm telling you this. Maybe because I need to say it out loud, even if it's just once, even if it's too late. Maybe you're carrying something too. Maybe you know what it feels like to hold on to something because you don't know how to let it go. I don't know what you should do. I just know what I didn't do. And I'll be thinking about that for the rest of my life.